So one question that I see a lot of with people who are starting colts for the first time and they just, really don't know what they're doing or have a green horse and they say, I cannot get forward motion out of my horse. Um, you know, I've put 5 rides on this horse, and when I ask them to trot, they squirt out and blow up, or, when I ask them to lope, they blow up. Um, for one, that's a confidence issue in the horse. They need to get more confidence in themselves and in you. But second, the other thing that tells me right away is that person never got control of that horse's feet. A lot of people think getting a horse loosened up and getting them unstuck when it comes to moving forward is adding pressure to move them forward like that. And then when it comes to the trot, you just add more pressure to get them to move forward. But when it comes down to it, a horse that struggles with forward motion is a horse that you don't have control of that horse's feet. So things that you need to work on to get that horse's feet unstuck is not by pounding them in the sides and getting them to trot and getting them to, move forward and keep moving forward. You need to get that horse understanding that you have control of all 5 parts of their body and you have control of their feet. So like Cricket here, she has a tendency when she gets in a bind in her mind anyways, she soles up and she wants to do this. And her feet get stuck. And then pretty soon, if you keep adding that pressure with her, and like it's happened, she's bucked my husband off multiple times because he goes to kicking on her, getting her to go forward, and she just goes, no, I can't. And so he kicks her again and she blows up and bucks him off. And it's a good way to get yourself, or, other horses will bolt and tuck their butt and run. She stops and she blows and she goes up. She doesn't go forward. So what you need to do with these horses is get control of their feet. If I were to ask Cricket to back up here, whenever you start putting her kind of in a bind, for her, a bind, she soles up. So I'll show you guys here kind of what I mean. So backing up is a good thing. One thing that she shows really good with this. Why are you side passing? Stop that. Getting her to back. When I ask her to back lightly off of the rein, she does a good job. And she's just moving those feet. But when I ask her to back, see here, she's kind of starting getting a little side passy. I don't know why she's thinking side pass. I'm not asking her to. So when I ask her to back lightly, she backs lightly. But when I ask her for any speed, you can see her feet getting sticky on me right there. She added a little bit of speed, but I could feel that it's like I'm physically dragging her feet through knee-deep mud. It's just, you could feel her just, ugh. And so the way to get her to back faster isn't by sitting here going, hey, back faster, back faster, back faster, back faster, back faster, back faster. See, she's soling up right there. And if I were to keep getting after her for that and putting her in a bind in her mind, she's going to blow. So what I'm going to do is get control of those feet. And so now she already knows that's probably why she's starting to side pass and stuff, is loosen up and free those feet, untrack that hind end here, both directions. Get that hind end untracked and moving, get those feet free. And I got to tell you, when I started working with this horse, getting her feet loosened up, it was a chore to get her to move, especially her front end. It's particularly her front end that gets stuck. Getting her to move those shoulders independently from this hind end was a chore. I cannot tell you how long it took me sitting here just rewarding the smallest try. I literally started out with, okay, we're good, stop. She moved, I could feel her move her shoulder. Let's try again. Okay, good, stop. We'll reward that. I had to reward a lot of try with her to get this unstuck, because this was just, she didn't know how to loosen up and free up. And ever since we've started working on, my husband, I started her originally, I put like 2 rides on her, and my husband stole her from me. So I didn't really get the opportunity to get things loosened up and all of that on her before my husband took her. And my husband been cowboying off her, and he's like, well, as long as I can rope something off of her, she has a semi-decent handle, she'll be fine. And guess what? Since he has had that mindset, he's gotten bucked off of her a handful of times because he thinks that adding more pressure to get those feet moving forward is going to fix the problem, when in reality, what should have been done from when we first started riding her was get them unstuck originally. And so getting their feet unstuck and working on things like getting bend in that body right here, getting them to understand that they can move their shoulder, move their hind end, move their shoulder, move their hind end, get that hind end. There we go, move that shoulder. Exercises like this, getting those feet unstuck, are really going to help with this horse's forward movement, because they're going to understand freedom of movement of those feet. And so getting that whole body loosened up by controlling the feet, and getting them loosened up, move that hind end, doing stuff like this. And she's not super pretty at it right now. She's not full of a ton of finesse, but she's better now with her forward movement than she's ever been, because I've taught her freedom of movement of her feet. And so now when I ask her to go forward into the trot, she is a lot more free picking up that trot than she ever was before. Before, when I asked her to pick up the trot, when I first started riding her recently, you could tell it was like when I was backing her up there, and it just felt like she was dragging her feet through knee-deep mud. That's what it was like getting her to pick up the trot. She's like, okay. And it was just like a bunch of pent-up, okay, I have to. And then sometimes it wasn't, okay, I'll trot. Sometimes it was, I got a buck now. Whereas now, she's a lot more free moving into that trot than she was before. Ooh. And it's the same thing asking her to pick up the canter. Her forward movement has become a lot more fluid. And that's something, in the instance, a lot of people are going to say, when it comes to a horse that's struggling with forward movement, if they get sticky in the feet and blow up when you ask them, a green horse, when you ask them to trot, lope, or whatever, or if it comes to a green horse and you're working with them and they're having issues when it comes to transitioning upward, particularly, either they get sticky and sole up and stop and then blow up by either bucking or bolting, or they just take off. But you could feel that horse as you're asking them to go just underneath you, like, oh my God, sorry, kind of thing. And that's what this horse did. She had a tendency of, you could feel her body each time you kicked her get more tighter. And she just wind up into herself, and then she had to release it. And so she blew. And that's because this horse was never taught to loosen up and free her feet. Her feet got stuck when she was in a bind, when you asked her with too much pressure to do something. Now, because we've worked on, all right, let's back up. Move this shoulder over. Move this shoulder over. Stop. Move that hind in. Move that hind in. Come on. Tipping her nose in a lot there so she's encouraged to, there we go. Move that hind in, untrack that hind in on this side, untrack that hind in, back, back, bring that shoulder, bring that shoulder, bring that shoulder. And she's learned to move each of these body parts individually and unstick and loosen and free her body. Because of that, when I ask her to trot, she steps out with a purpose now, loose and free. And when I ask her to lope, it's the same thing. We're not struggling with kicking and kicking and kicking. And each kick, she just goes, hoop, 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 blow. Now, when I ask her to do something with my legs and ask her to move forward, if I ask her to neck rein over, you know, she knows that she has freedom of movement with her feet. We've untracked those feet. We've got them moving. We've got them loose. We've got them free. And so now she has no issue with forward movement. The issue of her shutting down mentally and souling up is gone. Now, I mean, she does it a little bit. You know, you could see I showed you earlier, and you can see now, look at that. There's a little bit more speed. We're going to reward the try. Right there. There's a little bit more speed with that back. Now I'm not expecting her to shoot across backwards back across the pen here, but there's more try with it. Just by untracking her feet. I didn't sit here and crank and jerk and pull on her face and kick and kick and kick and demand. I said, you know what? Your issue is your feet. Your feet are stuck. Let's get your feet unstuck. How we get your feet unstuck is by reminding you that you can move your hind end individually and untrack that. And then you can bring your shoulder around and you can move that individually and loosen up those feet and do exercises like that, you know, backing a little bit, moving that hind end around, stop, back, bring the front end around. Then things like that create the side pass, that's the wrong way. Okay. See, like right here, she's kind of like, what do I do? We're going to bring that hind end, then we're going to stop. Instead of side passing, we're moving each end individually. Bring that hind end, stop, bring that shoulder, stop, bring that hind end, stop, bring that shoulder, stop. Doing stuff like that and getting her feet loosened up and free. And then in the future, as she gets better, we're going to work on things like untracking that hind end, walking in a straight line. We're going in a straight line, but her body's at an angle, kind of like a dog walk, like this. Untracking that hind end. And one thing that I'll work on, like with Reba that I do a lot of and with Phil, is I'll just walk up and down a fence line and walk them and untrack that hind end and just swing their butt this way, swing their butt this way, swing their butt this way, swing. All right, we got that hind end nice and free. Let's do it with the shoulders now. Now we're going to turn this way. We're going to turn this way. We're going to turn this way. And just kind of zigzag down, either by swinging the shoulders or the hind end at a walk. And then I do it at a trot. And it's a really good thing to get your horses to understand that freedom of movement through their body when they particularly have a tendency to sole up and shut down, either completely sole up like cricket does and then blow up by bucking, or sole up and then blow up by going forward. So it's something that you can easily fix with your horses. Hey, get that hind end around. Come on. There we go. That's a good one. And especially with green horses, cricket, I'm being a lot more demanding because we've worked on this with her before, and as you can see, it's not pretty, but we have worked on it. But with a green horse, getting them to move their shoulders, getting them to move their hind end, like I said, with her, you have to reward the try when you first start out. So something like that right there, that's rewarding the try. As soon as you feel that leg, just, all right, we're going to reward that. And the same thing with the hind end. You know, you ask that hind end right there. I felt her just whoop with that butt, reward that. And that's how you start out. And then you start building and building and asking for more and asking for more. Not getting greedy is, especially with green horses, is crucial. But you could see with her, just by at the beginning of this video when I asked her to back, when I was asking her to back, I was getting about this, being light. And so now that I've untracked her and got her feet moving, we can get a little bit more of a try. And she's got more speed to her. I'm not pulling on her as hard. I'm bumping her with my legs. And her legs aren't getting more and more heavy and sticky feeling as I'm moving back. So with her, as we start progressing into, let's add some speed to that back, let's stop straight. You know, we're going to start, okay, back. And see, she's getting sticky again right here. I got too demanding with her. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to go, hey, move that. There we go. You could probably hear me kicking her side right there. You know, this is what she does. She gets sticky when she's not comfortable with that movement. She's comfortable. She's a lot better now with forward movement because of untracking her body, untracking her feet. She's gotten confident in her forward movement because we do a lot, obviously, when you're riding horses, you do a lot more forward movement. So she's gotten a lot more confident in herself because of it. But now, there we go. Now we're going to see that. See how just swinging her hind end back and forth a couple of times and getting the back end loosened up? We got a better try out of her, and we're going to reward that and not get greedy because she was confident in it. So if you have a horse, a green horse that you're struggling with forward movement on them, you know, you go to pick up the walk, trot, canter, whatever, and that horse soles up or whatever, you need to get that horse on, loosen up their feet, free up their feet. And by free up their feet, I'm not meaning add more pressure until they move forward. I'm meaning get control of that horse's shoulders and hind end and be able to move them individually with freedom of motion. Let that horse understand that freedom of motion. That's what I mean by free up their feet, not by sit there and kick on them, pop them, you know, add more pressure onto this horse until it moves forward. It means literally get their feet unstuck from here, because that horse is going to go here. You want that horse to understand that they can go here like this, and they can go here, and they can cross with front and hind, and they can move their parts individually. That's going to help your horses out a lot that have a tendency that are really sticky or sole up or have issues confidently moving into the next gait. You don't go about fixing that situation by adding more pressure for forward movement, because essentially what you're doing is creating a pressure pot with this horse. And every single time you add pressure by kicking it, by, you know, maybe popping it or having somebody flag it from the ground or something like that, every time you add that pressure, every single kick is a little bit more pressure to that pot, and that horse just goes, and then that pressure builds up within that horse, and that horse doesn't know how to release it, so they explode. And so you have a horse that starts bucking, you have a horse that bolts, you have a horse that flips over and rears on you, and that's how it releases that pressure. It builds up that pressure and then releases it with a violent reaction and explosion arcs around. And so teaching that horse to loosen up their feet by untracking it and realizing that they can move this direction, they can cross over, they can do this, and disengaging that pressure, then you create a horse that's going to be able to move forward more fluently. So if you have a horse that, you know, has issues picking up gaits, just kind of is sticky with it. You can tell that they're just not confident moving into it. They're just kind of like, okay, this is something that helps out a lot. And it's something that's helped with cricket a lot just in the handful of times that I've been riding her when my husband hasn't. Just getting those feet freed up and loosened up, even asking her to go into the trot. She steps into that trot confidently now. Whereas before, when I asked her to trot, you could feel it's just like she was getting ready to soul up. And it was kind of a 50-50 deal whether she was going to soul up on you or not.